All right, peace and love, everybody. I hope that everybody is doing well on today, the 20th of June, 2021. It's Father's Day, and happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there, all of the grandfathers, the stepfathers, the fathers in law, the godfathers. I'm not talking about the movie, the surrogate fathers, all of the father figures out there. We're honoring you today on Father's Day, and so we've actually been in this series of honor for this is the fourth week that we've been working in this honor series, and so the first week. We're focusing on honoring Jesus, so who I frequently refer to as Yeshua, because I think that's what his mom and daddy called him. Or well, his mom and Joseph, and his friends and the people that he interacted with. And then the following week, we were dealing with honoring your body. Okay, honoring your body. The week after that, last week, actually, we were focusing on honoring your journey. And we kind of used Abraham or Abraham as kind of the guidepost for that, respective to his journey, which all of us are ultimately on a journey, and sometimes we make some missteps along the way. Abraham certainly did, or Abraham certainly did, and we do too. But it's important for us to honor the journey where we might be on the journey. And this week, the focus is somewhat twofold in terms of honoring our family lineage or our ancestry, our bloodline. But today being Father's Day, we're focused specifically on honoring fathers. And so that today's topic is technically honor thy father. And so in the in the Bible, in the book of Exodus, and in the 20th chapter and the 12th verse, we find the words, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God gives you. Okay? Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God gives you. Okay, and so this is actually in the 20th chapter of the book of Exodus is where you can actually find the Ten Commandments. Okay, and this piece on honoring your father and honoring your mother. Again, today's Father's Day, so we're really putting the focus on honoring your father, honor thy father, and really kind of fathers in general as well. Of the Ten Commandments, the first four deal specifically with one's relationship with God directly, and this is the first one that deals with a person's relationship with other people, how one is responding respective to other people. Okay, and so all of these Ten Commandments, as it were, really what they're ultimately all about is refining the character of a human being, right? All of them are really dealing with a person's character in one way or another, and that's something that all of us are in need of growing in terms of the purification, the refinement of our character. Okay, I've got this bracelet, this copper bracelet on my wrist that has Proverbs 4, chapter 23 on it, which says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows all the issues of your life. And a lot of times people think of that in terms of who you allow yourself to love. And that can be a component, but what really is significant about that is really keep your heart in check. You know, we're Where is your heart? How are you operating? What heart space are you operating from? Are you operating from bitterness and resentment and anger and hostility? Or are you operating from love and appreciation and gratitude and honor? Right? And so in the context of today's message on honor, in this series on honor and the focus on honoring your father specifically, you know, the text says honor your father and your mother. The reality is that we don't have as much of a challenge with honoring our mothers as we do our fathers. Honoring our mothers seem to come a little bit more naturally to people, right? Why does it come more naturally? For one thing, mothers tend to be there more. Okay, when you look at it from a historical perspective and a biological perspective, you know, you were literally a part of your mother's body for 9 months. You know, the mothers are nurturers. You know, the mothers are there to kiss wounds and to clean them up and to give hugs and those types of things. The mothers who you're usually receiving your nourishment from, even as a baby, you're eating dependent on your mother. Your oxygen, your breath depended on your mother. And even, you know, growing up, you know, it may have very well been that, you know, that your mother was key in terms of what you ate, in terms of meal planning and things and preparation and things of that nature. And a lot of times, you know, it's the mother who comforts and consoles, even then when the dad is there. And so, you know, when an athlete wins, you know, a trophy or Super Bowl or you know, whatever accomplishment that it's at the pinnacle of their chosen field, who do they usually? They usually get a shout out to mom. I want to thank my mom. It's not so often that you'll hear the father acknowledged. You frequently hear honor being given to the mother, but not as frequently honor given to the father. And so let's talk about honor for a second. Honor, by definition, and honor can be used as a noun or as a verb. In this context of honor thy father, we're talking about honor in terms of an action word, something that you do, a verb. And so we've got two definitions really dealing with honor. The first being respond, or excuse me, regard with great respect. Regard with great respect. There is something within every man that it is an actual innate need to experience and receive a sense of honor. Honor is key in manhood, right? And that doesn't diminish anything with women. Our focus today is on fathers, honoring thy father. Just as every woman wants to feel loved, cherished, adored, protected, taken care of, secure, every man wants to feel honored. Every man wants to feel powerful. Every man wants to definitely honor is key for a man. And it's easy sometimes to bypass that or take for granted or leave unrecognized. That kind of goes into the second definition of honor, which is pay public respect to, right? You see behind me, there's actually a picture of my father, Lance Terry Thomason. I'm actually next to him in the picture. It's actually the same jacket that I'm wearing right now. So I don't know why my jacket is looking a little purplish right now on the screen. What's up with that? But at any rate, we have these two things. The first, regard with great respect, that really deals with an attitude, taking on a certain attitude. And then the second one, pay public respect to, that's outward demonstration or outward expression of that sense of honor, right? And so this thing about honoring the father is significant. And we're kind of talking about this in the context of ancestors as well, because the reality is, whether your father is active in your life, whether he ever was active in your life or not, there's something that he gave you, and that is life itself. Kudos to all the moms out there that are killing the game, that are doing it on their own without the father being present in their life. Much love and much respect to you. That still doesn't diminish the value or the significance of a father. I know that there are a lot of people who experience a lot of pain as a result of the absence of a father. A person is 4 times more likely to grow up in poverty if they don't have a father figure in their life. Several times more likely to go to prison if they don't have a father figure in their life. Much more likely to do drugs and engage in a life of crime if they don't have a father figure in their life. Girls who become young ladies are much more likely to be sexually promiscuous if they don't have a father figure active in their life that helps them to feel loved and cherished and honored and respected. A young lady will be much more likely to have low self-esteem if she doesn't have a father figure in her life. Much more likely to end up in experiencing a lot of emotional dysfunction, and that can manifest in unhealthy relationships with men, and doing things to try to get men's attention and affections, because she's not necessarily got that same degree of self-worth that can be instilled by the presence of a father or a father figure in her life. Okay. And yes, there are wounds that come with the absence of a father, and even particularly the absence of a biological father, even if another father figure, an adopted father or a stepfather or a grandfather or an uncle or a teacher or a pastor or some strong male figure that serves as a father figure in one's life. There can still be a God-sized hole in the shape of a person's father, biological father, in their heart and in their life. And so I do want to definitely honor that. I do want to honor that. And I get that. At the same time, there's, from a biblical perspective, from a spiritual perspective, there's still value in honoring those who have come before us, right? The reality is, as awesome as mothers are, there's no life without a man. It doesn't exist. The reality is that how well a culture thrives is dependent upon, and the value of a culture is largely dependent on, the esteem with which it holds its women. A culture, a society, a nation, a people that does not value its women is not going to thrive. Similarly speaking, the strength of a people, of a nation, of a culture is contingent upon the strength of its men. It's dependent on the strength of its men, because the man's role, the father's role, is to guide, is to direct, is to protect. Okay, that's so key. And I recognize that there are so many occasions where the ball has been dropped, frankly, and the mark has been missed. And even if that's the case in your life, even if your father wasn't there, I still encourage you to honor him and those that came before him. And in the book of Genesis, chapter 4, and 1 and 2, they're talking about the creation, and 3 is talking about the fall and Adam and Eve in the garden. And then chapter 4 starts breaking down lineages about who begat whom and who begat whom. And in Matthew chapter 1 and in Luke chapter 3, verses 23 through 38, it breaks down lineages, and they're significant. And I'm just going to read real quickly from Matthew in the first chapter, that starts thusly: the book of the generations of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Judas, and his brethren. And Judas begat Phares and Zerah of Thamar, and Phares begat Esram, and Esram begat Aram, and Aram begat Aminadab, and Aminadab begat Naason, and Naason begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Boaz, and Rahab, and Boaz begat Obed of Ruth, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David the king, and David the king begat Solomon of her that had been the wife of Urias, and Solomon begat Roboam, and Roboam begat Abiah, and Abiah begat Asa or Asa, and Asa begat Jos- Josaphat, and Josaphat begat Joram, and Joram begat Ozias, and Ozias begat Joatham, and Joatham begat Ahaz, and Ahaz begat Ezekias, and Ezekias begat Manasseh, and Manasseh begat Ammon, and Ammon begat Josias, and Josias begat Jechonias and his brethren about the time they were carried away to Babylon. And after they were brought to Babylon, Jechonias begat Shalathiel, and Shalathiel begat Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel begat Abiud, and Abiud begat Eliakim, and Eliakim begat Azor, and Azor begat Sadok, and Sadok begat Achim, and Achim uh, Eliud, and Eliud begat Eleazar, and Eleazar begat Mathan, and Mathan begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, whom was born Jesus, who is called the Christ. They're taking great length in listing this lineage of man. None of us are where we are, and none of us could be where we are if it had not been for those who had gone before us. And that is a reality. And some made mistakes on the way. Guess what? If you have a father, he made some mistakes, because if you have a mother or a sibling or a grandparent, they made some mistakes, because we're all human, and humans are fallible and subject to making mistakes. But the reality is that we wouldn't be here if it were not for them. And there are some things that they have put in place that we sometimes even easily miss as a blessing, that would not be present in our lives if it were not for them. And so we're charged to offer honor, to respect that fact, to respect the fact, to regard with great respect the fact that no matter who your father was or how much he was there or how much he wasn't there, honor the fact that if it was not for him, there would be no you. If there was him, there would be no you. I learned recently that a hen does not need a rooster to lay eggs. A hen will automatically lay eggs whether there is a rooster that is present or not. However, the eggs will not turn into chicks that will hatch unless the fertilization of a rooster is present. So the egg is there, but there's no life unless there's a father that contributes that potent thing that makes life prosper, that causes things to be fertilized and causes life to take place. And so I encourage all of us to take time and honor those fathers. And I want to honor my father, Lance Terry Thomas. And I'm thankful that my father has been and continues to be in my life. Just hung up from on the phone with him just a few minutes before starting this live today. Now, I'm thankful for my father, and that my father is the man that he is, and for the lessons that he sowed into me and continues to sow into me. I had the blessing of a father who was there as my baseball coach, and who came to my football games and wanted to know what things were looking like on my report card, and who taught me if I was on a bus and there was a woman that got on the bus to give up my seat and to make sure that I was opening doors and all of these things. And even in terms of how to treat my mother, Those, a lot of things I learned from my father, a lot of things I'm still learning from my father in terms of manhood and leadership and things of that nature. And I speak the names of those who are, and I honor my stepfather, even Chuck Hall, who also sowed seeds into me, and I want to honor him as well, and those who are in the ancestral realm, my father's father, Ernest John Thomason Sr., and his father before him, Jr., and his father before him, Ernest John Thomason Sr., and his father before him, Walter Thomason. And I honor my maternal grandmother's father, Thomas Slaughter Sr., and I honor my paternal grandfather, John Allen Hall, and his father before him, John Needham Hall, and my paternal grandmother's father, Pierpont Morgan Pickett, and his father, Wilson Pickett, and I honor the mother of my mother's father, Frank Thomas, and I honor Kane Kirksey, and so many whose names I don't know. I give thanks for you, and I honor your memory. I speak your name out into the atmosphere. I honor your memory, and I give thanks that you were, because you were, I am. If there was no you, there certainly would be no me. And so I give thanks and honor for you. Now, there is a reality that there are, and yesterday was Juneteenth, in honor of June 19th, 1865 is when the proclamation was made in Galveston, Texas, in the state of Texas, that slavery had been abolished. The reality is that Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on September 22nd, 1862, that was going to make chattel slavery in the southern states illegal starting on January 1st, 1863, which is why a lot of predominantly African American churches have a New Year's Eve service referred to as a watch night service, because they were watching for that clock to hit 12 where freedom would ring in. Okay. And then it was a whole 2 years and 9 months later before Texas got the message about it being abolished. But that isn't when slavery ended in Texas still, because it still had to end up being enforced. And yet even Texas wasn't the last state to end slavery, because Delaware and Kentucky, it was December 6th of 1865 when the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution actually officially made it illegal to hold human beings in ownership and in servitude without pay. But still then, it didn't end until 1866. And in the African American community, and I'm going to touch specifically on that because it's something with which I personally identify, significantly identify. The nature of a man, as I said earlier, every man wants to feel and be seen and regarded for his strength, right? And yet, and be a protector. That's something that's innate. It's programmed into us. It's hardwired into men to want to be a protector, to be a provider, to take care of, right? And yet in the system of chattel slavery, things were knocked off. Things were knocked off. And a man's wife could be taken by the slaveholder, and there was nothing he could do about it. His wife could be sold off, and there was nothing he could do about it. His children could be beat by some other man, and there was nothing he could do about it. His children could be sold off, and there was nothing he could do about it. There was nothing he could do about it. He would even sometimes be sodomized by the slaveholder to make him feel less of a sense of manhood. There wasn't anything he could do about it, right? That is a reality. That is a reality. And there are things that still trickle down, even in terms of our current society today, where the effects of that, the deep ingrained psychological effects of that, still have an impact. They still have an impact. There's a saying in the Bible that the sins of the father are visited upon the son from generation to generation. And sin is really just a term that means missing the mark. By definition, in reality, sin is anything in the created that is not in alignment or not consistent with the nature of the creator. And put another way, sin is a sense of separation from God. Okay, that's why we seek atonement or at one-ment. That is the gift that Yeshua, that Jesus brings. It's the gift of atonement, of at one-ment, of salvation. These are all words that really mean the same thing. Okay, and so there's that need for return to that sense of at one-ment. And I tell you, there is something about the experience of a man not being able to protect his woman, his wife, his children, his family, people in his community, that has an impact. And those things can be passed down from generation to generation until the curse is broken, until that pattern is broken, until a new cycle is created. And not everybody necessarily has all of those tools. I'm thankful that I've been blessed with some tools, but not everybody has those tools. And the manifestation of that can result in self-medication in all types of forms. It can result in womanizing, and it can result in Papa being a rolling stone. It can result in addiction to drugs and alcohol as a way to attempt to self-medicate. Now, I'm not saying this as a way to make excuses for our brothers. Every man needs to be a man. Every father, just because he donated a seed doesn't mean that he's off the hook. Every father has a responsibility, and I'm not diminishing that one bit, but I do want us to understand the nature of the challenge, and the significance in terms of honor is so key. And so what are some ways that one can go about honoring thy father? Okay, number one, honor again is to regard with great respect. So the first thing that can be done in terms of honoring thy father is to stop disrespecting them. Now, this is the case of your own father, or the father of your children, or a father figure in your life, just the discontinuation of the disrespect. And that's not to let a brother off the hook for not doing what he's called to do, for not doing what he's supposed to do. And yes, it is a reality that there are a lot of single mothers that are out there that are doing things to raise boys. And no, that's not fair. Yes, a man should step up and honor his responsibilities. And no, it doesn't always happen. But guess what? Guess what? Every child knows that their father, whoever it is still a piece of them. And when you badmouth a child's father to that child, that still is going to impact their sense of self-worth. That's still going to impact their self-esteem. If they're hating their father because of what their father didn't do or what their father did do, they're going to end up hating a part of themselves as well. There's going to be anger that they're going to have that's going to be toxic to their soul. There's going to be behavior that's going to manifest in them where they're going to act out in the people with whom they encounter in their lives. And that's going to present challenges and difficulties. And so it's important that even in terms of your children, if you're raising children alone, or if you are with the father, that you're honoring him. That step one is just stopping the disrespect of them. Just stopping the disrespect. If your father wasn't there, let your words be nothing at all or something that you can find to appreciate. Okay. The power of death and life is in the tongue. Speak those things that be not as though they actually were. If your father hasn't been there, if he's not been a good father, don't continue to let that be your confession, something negative about him, because the reality is that there's power in your words. There's power in your words. Number two, another way that you can honor your father is pray for him. Pray for that man. He can use those prayers. If you were to say to this mountain, be removed from here and go jump in the sea, truly and completely believing in your heart, that mountain wouldn't have any choice but to uproot itself and go over yonder. That's what the text says. There's power in your prayers. It also says, listen, don't get anxious or worrisome about anything. But in all things through prayer and supplication. Supplication is just what you're requesting supply of. With thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God that passes all understanding will keep you through Christ Jesus. Well, listen, that with thanksgiving is a statement of faith, speaking it as it already is so, expressing that gratitude as it's already so. If your father is a great father, thank God for him. Thank God for him. Thank God that not everybody has that. Don't take it for granted, because it's not something that everybody has. If you've got a father figure in your life, even if it's not your biological father, thank God for that man. It's not easy to raise another man's children. It takes a special man to raise another man's children or another man's child. Don't take that for granted. Lift him up in prayer. Lift him up in prayer. Give God thanks for him. Pray God continues to direct him and strengthen him so that he can experience the pride of being the type of father figure that he really in his soul ultimately wants to be anyway, whether he's there yet or not. Whew, I'm not saying it like it's easy, but remember what I said before, that honor thy father and thy mother, that you really can live a long life full of the blessings that God has promised you. Well, that's part of how you get there. And this is an issue of character. All 10 of the commandments are really speaking to character. These are things you need to keep in mind in terms of the development of your character. God is concerned with your character. God's concerned with the quality of your heart, right? Yes. Okay. And so, yes, pray for him. Another thing, share time with him, right? I said earlier, we tend to naturally find it easy to honor our mothers because they're just physically there more than the fathers are, because the fathers have some different responsibilities. Sometimes they're there not because they're tending to the responsibilities. Sometimes they're just not there. But a lot of times they're tending to responsibilities to make sure that you're taken care of in other ways and provided for. And so they can't always be there. My father talks often about how, sometimes feels sad that when my siblings and I were growing up, he wasn't able to be there as much because he was working to make sure he could provide and everything. And sometimes having to travel out of town quite a bit. And so not able to be physically present as much as he would have liked to. And my father is very much a family man. He's a family oriented man. I thank God for that. I get that from him. But now, as a retired man and grandfather, he gets to enjoy that with the grandchildren. It's like he gets to have that as a do-over. All right. I spoke with them earlier, and two of my nieces and one of my nephews was over there with them. And you want to see a happy man? Have his grandchildren around him. Have his grandchildren around him. But, fathers still love to be able to have that time with their children. My father's at his most happiest when he has his children and grandchildren around him and my stepmother around him, right? Fathers love to be able to have that time. Most of the time, you go see your folks, if they're still together, who do you probably spend most of the time with when you go for that visit? Probably your mom. If they still have a landline and you call, who you do probably spend most of the time on the phone with? Probably your mom, right? Right? It's just the nature of things. It's easy to miss that and maybe not even recognize the dads appreciate and enjoy that too. So just have time where you're enjoying the presence of your father and giving him that honor and the gift of your time and your presence where possible. And in that time, listen to him. Fathers love to be able to offer advice or insight, guidance, direction. They've likely experienced some hardships in their lifetime. They'd like to prevent you from having to endure, right? That they don't want you to have to make those same mistakes. They can see the pitfalls that are ahead. And really, although they acknowledge that you will ultimately have to make your own decision, they really want to be able to prevent you from having to fall in those pitfalls, those holes in the ground, you know, crashing into those brick walls. So another way you can honor is listen to them and hear them, you know. And I know dads can be, you know, I think about is this show that I like on television called This Is Us. And there's this character named Randall Pearson. That's my guy, Randall. And in fact, there are some great fathers on that show. Randall Pearson and his father, adopted father, actually, Jack Pearson. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful, wonderful fathers, these two men are. And, you know, Randall is known for, you know, for telling these like maybe long stories, having these teaching moments. And a lot of times dads are good for that. And, you know, I've heard people joke around, you know, about their father telling them a story or giving them this teaching moment, you know, whether it was a time that they were in trouble for something that they did or a time that they're trying to prevent them from getting in trouble. And, you know, I've heard people say before, oh, goodness, Dad, just give me a spanking. That would be less painful than having to sit and listen to this. But listen, there's something that's of value in the things that a father is wanting to share with you. So take that time and you can give honor by taking the time to listen, to hear him out. Even if you don't necessarily agree with everything that he says, give him the honor of taking that time to listen to what it is that he has to say. Because there might be something that you can take, that you can use. And even if you don't feel like it is something that you can take and use at that moment, you're doing something of value in terms of deepening that connection and that relationship. And you're honoring him in that process. And that's not only doing something for him, it's doing something for you and your character as well. And the next thing that I want to mention is express gratitude. Let them know that you value them. Pay public respect to. You know, tell him, tell other folks. You know, how many of you have besmirched, you know, your father or other people to other people? You know, yeah, he didn't do this, he didn't do that, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. Yeah, maybe he did miss the mark. I'm sure that he did. Like I said, he's human. Is there something that he did get right? Even if he was never there, he brought you here. At least maybe recognize that. Those father figures in your life. Maybe your biological father wasn't there. Maybe there was somebody else that stepped in and did the job, and I'm certain he wasn't perfect at it. but hold a space of gratitude and let him know that you're appreciative of his presence there. Honor that there were some things that he did get right. Let him know and let other people know it, right? Let him know it and let other people know it. Have a kind word to say. My late great aunt, Dolores Thomason, used to always say this thing. She passed earlier this year. She used to always, my paternal grandfather's sister, used to always say, talk about giving people their flowers while they can still smell them. Well, men aren't so pressed about receiving flowers in terms of the stuff that you put in a vase. But I mean, a father still appreciates a kind word being spoken about him. You know, he doesn't want to wait until his funeral before a kind word is spoken about him. Yeah. Speak those kind words to him. Speak those kind words about him to others. Those are ways that you can honor your father. Now, for those people who all of this might be a little bit of a stretch, you might have had a father that was abusive. You might have had a father that was never there. You might have had a father that was strung out. You might have had a father that you're glad to get away from. And I know that that is difficult to deal with, and that can be difficult to recover from. But the good news is that beyond the mistakes that man made, that you have a heavenly Father who's father to the fatherless, a mother to the motherless, a friend to the friendless, and you've got a God who loves you, who cares about you, who knows everything about you, who has numbered the very hairs on your head, will never leave you nor forsake you. And I want to encourage you to take a moment right now and give recognition to the fact that you have a father. And for some people, even the language of God as a father is difficult to really wrap your mind around. The reality is that God is all in all. The God is everything that you could want God to be, that the hole in your heart or the hole in your life from the absence of your father, if your father wasn't there or wasn't able to meet every single need that you had, it's a hole that can only be filled by God. It can only be filled by God. And so I want to encourage all of us to take some time right now, in this now moment, and honor our eternal Father, the common Father of us all. We can stop disrespecting God as a starter. Oh gosh, and how many different ways do we do that? And I'm not saying this to you so you'll start feeling really bad about yourself, but there is an opportunity to just choose differently. There are things that I have very recently, just in the last couple weeks, realized there were some areas that I really wasn't getting it right. And I'm not wanting to beat up on myself, but now I see, I recognize, I know better, and I choose to do better. Right? And so if you are ever in any way disrespected God, dishonored God, it's okay. Not that it's good or right that you did that. You can start anew from where you are right now. The next thing, pray. Now, in this case, you're not going to be praying for God. You can pray to God. Talk to God. Acknowledge God's presence in your life, regardless of who was there and who wasn't there. If you had a father who was in your life or a father figure who's in your life, it was because of the presence of God that father or father figure was able to be a blessing to you. They couldn't have been a blessing to you if it wasn't for God. And if you didn't have that, then God can be the one who steps in and serves as that father that you didn't have in the natural, who will never leave you nor forsake you, who will protect you. The name of the Lord is a strong house, and the righteous runneth into it and is safe. The God who will cover you with his pinions. The God who sits high above all power. that there could ever be to cause you harm. The power of God can bring you into safety and into peace in the midst of all chaos. Can bring you a love beyond what any human, no matter how awesome a human can be. There's no awesome level of love compared to that of God, our eternal Father, our Heavenly Father of us all. Take that time and spend with God. This is something I've been doing a lot more of lately. Not that I ever stopped spending time with God altogether. I've never stopped doing that, but I definitely did get away from it to a large extent. And I didn't realize how much I needed it or how much I missed it. Take that time and commune with God. The reality is that there is no spot where God is not. God is everywhere equally present. But sometimes we don't allow ourselves to know that. We get bent out of shape by the things that we see going on in the world. But God is that steadying hand that's able to keep us in the midst of whatever it is that's going on. Listen to what it is that God has to say. Don't let all of the talking be what it is that you want. Let some of that time in conversation be listening to God. I ask God, what is it that you want to talk about today? What is it that you want to speak to me about today? And I listen to what it is that God says. And thanks be to God, sometimes I actually hear. Not always, but sometimes I do. And I'm thankful for that. Hear God out. Sometimes God might say something that you don't want to hear. Maybe to stop doing something you don't want to stop doing. Maybe to start doing something you don't really want to do. God might be speaking to your heart about something that might seem weird in the eyes of people. Might be telling you to say something to somebody. Might be telling you to do something. Might be telling you to give something over here. Might be telling you to lend a hand here. It might not be something that you necessarily want to do, but guess what? If God is sharing with you to do it, then it is going to be for your highest and best good in the end. God might be telling you to let go of something. God might be telling you to embrace something. Whatever it is, just take that time and learn to distinguish God's voice. Listen to God's voice and let it begin to resound in your heart and in your life. See God's counsel and all the things that you're doing. And then that final one, express gratitude. Let God and others know that you value what it is that God's bringing to the table, and not just what God can do for you, but for who God is. The creator and the sustainer of life, the giver of every good and perfect gift, the one who called the cosmos into existence out of nothingness, the one who has placed every one of the 200 to 400 billion stars in the Milky Way and set them aflame, giving off warmth and light. The one who spoke into the earth and caused water to separate and the land to appear and plants to start growing up out of the earth, and other life forms in the forms of animals, including you and I as human beings. We can't conceptualize intellectually how humans came to be. There's so much that science looks to understand and philosophy looks to understand, and then even religion looks to understand, that still can't ultimately explain. But there's a God behind all of that. The stuff that we can't comprehend, can't even begin to fathom without our brains wanting to explode. And God keeps all of that in balance. And like I said before, even in the midst of all of that, the very hairs on your head are numbered. God is concerned with every detail in your life and is perfecting the things that concern you. Let God know that you appreciate God for what God does, yes, but for who God is. Recognize God's majesty and awesomeness and power and wisdom and love. There's no power greater than God. And because God is. You and I are. There's nothing that exists that could exist if not for God. Everything that was made, God made. Every good thing that is available, God made and makes available to you and I. And let us not be too slow to share with other people. The way we can honor our eternal Father is by sharing with other people about our appreciation, our love, and our value for that which cannot be created, cannot be destroyed, can be dismissed in the minds of men, but yet still never goes away. The ability to be able to even see this broadcast is a result of a man-made technology in the internet, but that man-made technology could not have existed without the insight of God, without the ingenuity of God making it available. And that really is a human technology that mimics a God technology that links us all together with one another, right? Anyway, I'm so thankful that you've been able to be here today. I'm thankful for our time together. I pray God's richest blessings upon you. May we honor our fathers, those fathers in our lives, our own biological fathers, stepfathers, grandfathers, godfathers, those who've been father figures in our lives. May we honor them, and may we really, truly honor God. God bless you. I love you. Look forward to seeing you soon.